always talking about some different types of foods, and I think you and I have had this debate before. But Michelle and I were going to go get wings this weekend. We ultimately didn't because we ended up getting Mexican food. But
We've had this debate.
about is it drummies or flats? What's your favorite? Have we had that
Yes,
debate?
because this was a Parker John's Road America debate.
Is that where we debated it? So what's your go-to?
Flat.
Okay, yes. I'm glad we're on the same page there then.
See, but that's not what the people want. The people want us to disagree and fight with each other and then hate each other.
I know. Okay, favorite sauce.
Oh, well, that gets tough because you can go to B Dubs and they have a barbecue sauce, and you can go somewhere else and they have a barbecue sauce. And on like the most part, barbecue sauce is going to be pretty much rudimentary wherever you go. It's going to be good. Yeah, I very rarely go to a place where it's not good, and that's usually because it's too watery or not sweet enough. But then, like, you go to B Dubs and get a garlic parm, and then you go to our favorite wing place down the street and you get garlic parm there, and they are not anywhere close to being identical.
No, you get some that are real creamy and some that are more like runny.
Well, this one's weird. It's like creamy based, but then they put physical Parmesan shredded cheese on it and broil it for like a minute before they send it out.
Yeah, that's interesting.
It's good. It's just not what you would think a garlic parm is. So if we're talking conventional sauce that I can get anywhere, I'm going to probably stick to a buffalo. If we're talking
And with
what's
spice
my
level, are you like
go-to,
mild, medium, hot? Where on the spice level?
I'm I'm hovering around a medium.
Okay.
And then as far as my just favorite wing sauce that I can get anywhere, or my favorite wing sauce that I've had at a certain place, it's down the street. The garlic parm there, I love that.
So you mentioned beat ups. Can we just agree that they have good sauces, but their wings are kind of trash?
I will never get a traditional wing at B Dubs ever again.
I feel like the traditional wings there are bone, some cartilage, and maybe a sliver of meat. I just feel like
And they're not even cooked correctly.
no, they leave so much to be desired. Their boneless are fine. There's nothing wrong with their boneless. It's just like your
Yeah,
basic like chicken nugget type thing.
they're actually above average chicken nuggets. I actually like, so if
I would
we'll go to
agree.
Boneless Thursday,
I would agree.
and we like their potato wedges are really good too.
Mm-hmm.
But they do have $3 beers on every day of the week. But other than that, yeah, we will never get traditional wings there ever again. We only pretty much will go on a Thursday,
Fair.
um, which might be. Wait, did you get your sauces? What'd you say?
My favorite sauce? If we're talking conventional, you can get anywhere. I don't know if you can get this anywhere, but I would say like a hot barbecue. Not regular honey barbecue, but like a hot barbecue slash spicy garlic. One of those two. I like both of those.
Remember when we got loaded and went to Parker John's
Yeah.
in town?
Yep. That was a great time. So the other reason I brought up food is I told Michelle I would cover our game day meal this upcoming Sunday, and I'm trying to figure out what I want to make. We might end up watching the Sunday night game over at a friend's house. He might have some of us over. He likes to do patio watch parties for the early season, and it just so happens we get an early season Packers Sunday night game, so we might go there. But I still need to come up with like a good food, so I haven't figured out what I'm going to do yet. But I want to have a good game day
Buffalo dip.
snack. See, I was thinking that I want to do something kind of outside the box. I don't know. I'll have to figure it out. I'll report back.
Season kicked off Thursday. We had some friends over. I don't know what you guys did. If you guys just had a low key night or anything.
I was still battling the COVID, so it was very much a low
Oh,
key.
that's
It
right.
was a low key weekend of football and IndyCar racing in this household. Not much happened.
I barely watched the race. I I know
So
this isn't a racing podcast, but man, I like couldn't care less about the race with the NFL going on.
I know we're in a safe space, so I just have to be honest. So you've seen my living room. We don't have double screens. We have our regular TV, but then I have this little like 20-inch like DVD player TV that I can hook a Chromecast to. So for the kickoff, I have NFL Network, so I had like the NFL. It's not Red Zone. It's like I think they call it like Game Day Live, where it's like constant. Like it's similar to Red Zone, but it's just kind of random, a little more random than
It's not
Red
like
Zone.
as live. It's more like, oh hey, 4 minutes ago.
Yes, correct. So I had that going on one screen, and then I had the Bears Niners game going on the other. And then for the race, I had the IndyCar race on the big screen, and I had football on the small screen. And
Oh,
It was the last race of the season. I told and Michelle was on board because I was like, "Look, we'll talk Packers Vikings later." I already knew what was
She
going
was
to
on
happen in this
board
game.
because New Garden was in it.
Fair. Uh, but ultimately, so this is the second year I've done that now because I had to do it last year, and both were during week one when the Packers got shellacked. So, in a lot of ways, it has helped keep me more disconnected from the first half of those games. And then it all just kind of comes crashing in the second half when I move that over to the large screen. But very happy race season is over, so I don't have to pull the whole split screen thing anymore. But uh, I also was not fully plugged in on all the early games outside of the Bears Niners game and a little bit of the Steelers Bengals game because of that.
So I had TV one, the nice TV, the HD 4K. That's for the red zone. And then TV two was Bears Niners. And then IndyCar was on the phone, just casually checking. Like I have the window off to the side, so I just casually pull it up. It's like, all right, Polo's still eating, and then back. Anyways, alas, we are a racing podcast. Not. Rams Bills. Bills pretty much took it to them the majority of the game. Final score 31-10. Josh Allen looked really good. Stephon Diggs looked really good. Gabriel Davis looked really good. Bills O-line looked pretty good. Run game was consistent. Their defensive line looked really good. Their coverage outside of a couple of breakdowns of Cooper Cup looked pretty good. Bills looked really good.
They look like a wagon, man. They are doing everything that, or I shouldn't say doing everything. They looked like everything that we thought they were going to be this season. And I know it's only week one, but man, they look good. And I know a couple of people asked us, did they look so good because it was the Bills just playing lights out, or did the Rams really play that bad? I think it was kind of a combination of both. But on the Bills side, um, people are asking, are they peaking too early? Do they look too good in week one? Because I tell you what, they were firing on all cylinders.
I would rather look good in week one than not look good in
It
week
was kind
one.
of a tongue in cheek, sarcastic remark.
Oh, okay. Well, I think they did look very good. And I also do think the Rams did not look very good. And, you could point at, Aaron Donald not really making too many plays, Jalen Ramsey getting burnt many, many times, Stafford not looking super comfortable. I mean, the only standout player that I left the game going, wow, they played pretty well, pretty good, was Cooper Cup.
Yep.
Other than that, nobody on that team was like, wow, I really wish that person was on my team. So I think one of the overarching problems with the Rams right now, Van Jefferson was out, and then Odell Beckham Jr. is still unsigned by anybody. Obviously, he's still being linked to the Rams, and he did send out a tweet
He was there.
saying
He was on the field before the game.
he was there, but he sent out a tweet saying he's going to pick next team he's going to play for was whoever won the game, with a bunch of sarcastic emojis. But I still got a kick out of that.
Yeah.
But so, they signed Allen Robinson from the Bears in the offseason, and my God, talk about Casper the Ghost out there. Where he was nowhere.
And I don't know if you looked back at any of the like all 22 stuff or any of the highlights, but his entire route tree, like McVay was talking about how they were so excited to have this guy that has this diverse route tree. He ran a bunch of 5, 10, and 15-yard comebacks the entire game. Like it literally consisted of the comeback route nonstop. It was like when you have a receiver in Madden, that's your number 3 receiver, so they always get stuck with the same routes. And you're like, man, I really wish this guy would run a different route, but I'm not going to spend the time to set that up. It's like Sean McVay just didn't spend the time to update his playbook. It was bizarre.
Well, imagine being Robinson. I don't remember what year he came into league. I think it was about 7, 8 years ago. I think his first quarterback was it must have been either Blaine Gabbert or Blake Bortles. So going from that shit show to Chicago with Trubisky, who you can make your arguments about Trubisky. I'm going to go ahead and just say he went to a Matt Nagy led team. And then now you finally go to like defending Super Bowl champions, Matt Stafford, maybe not a future Hall of Fame quarterback, and your first game out there, you get one catch.
Well, the thing is, even in 2019 and 2020, he had over 1,000 yards and like 100 receptions both seasons.
Well, when you're the only guy in the team to throw to, other I guess
Yeah,
Mooney was
yeah,
there,
yeah,
but he's
yeah.
the clear number one, and it's like, all right, Robinson, go bail us out.
Well, that was kind of my point. Was despite Matt Nagy's ineptitude, he
Yeah, he still did very
he
well.
found a way
But
to get him
now
the
it's
ball.
like he's going to Matt Nagy, except if Matt Nagy could call good plays and actually have a scheme.
Yep,
And then his first game out, he gets one catch.
yep.
It's like, what? So ultimately, I mean, we'll get an insight into your predictions when we publish them this week with the Rams hosting the Falcons, if you think they're going to rebound. But they definitely have some work to do, we'll say, on that front. Next up, I think if we're not talking about the Bears and Packers, which we will get to, obviously, I think one of the most exciting games in recent memory was the Steelers beating the Bengals 23-20 in overtime. I think it was with no time left as well. Joe Burrow, 5 turnovers, 4 interceptions. One of them that looked like an interception, but is technically classified as a fumble. So it could have easily been 5 interceptions had his arm been coming forward. So 5 turnovers, including a pick six. The McPherson has the chance, so they throw a touchdown with basically no time left in the fourth quarter to Jamar Chase, who was unguardable basically. And so it's tie game 2020. So they just need to McPherson extra point. But the long snapper was hurt. So the third string tight end was snapping the ball. And between a slow snap and poor blocking, Minka Fitzpatrick, who had the pick six, blocked the extra point. So we go to overtime. I think both kickers missed one kick in overtime, but then the Steelers drove down the field and Boswell kicked the game winner to cease the aging that was going on for everybody watching that game, because I think everybody lost 3 to 5 years of their life watching that game just from stress. There are so many places to start with that game. I don't know where you wanted to start.
I just think it's I think it's bizarro that this is now the second game in as many seasons that the Bengals have found themselves in like a let's see who can actually make a field goal at the end of the game or overtime to finally win, because they did the same thing against the Packers last year where Crosby and McPherson were trading missed field goals, and then Crosby hit it with no time left in overtime to win the game. And now the same thing
Yeah,
happened here, both in
Packers should have lost
Cincinnati.
that game. That's annoying.
Well, if both of these games were in Cincinnati, both times the Bengals had a chance to win it with who a lot of people think is one of the best, if not the best kicker, probably not the best kicker in the NFL, but you could say top five kicker in the NFL. So it's just so bizarre to me that this has now happened twice, and both times were in Cincinnati. So just some weird juju going on there. As far as Joe Burrow goes, he did not play in the preseason, if I am correct, but that was primarily injury driven. So I'd like to say some of that rust was because he didn't get a ton of reps in the preseason slash camp, and he's going to turn the corner. But I tell you what, the quarterback on the other side, your good friend Mitch Trubisky, looked pretty good in the first half. I didn't get to watch much of the second half because of the race, but the first half, he made a couple throws that I was like, oh my God, he completed a pass to his left. I never saw him do that when he was wearing number 10 for Chicago.
Why
So
was
good for you,
that, I
Mitch.
wonder?
Good for you, Mitch.
Do you think maybe the scheme didn't go that way? Probably.
Well, that was the other thing
Maybe
too
Madden.
that was impressive is you could tell that the offense, again, at least in the first half, the offense for the Steelers looked different than it did when Big Ben was quarterback. Um, and
I mean,
it,
yeah, you get a couple beers in me, and I'll go on a rant about how Big Ben should not have been leading this team for the last 3 or so years. I mean, he definitely has some clutch moments for sure, but
yeah,
at the same time, you look at what other teams are doing with their quarterbacks. It's like, why did you? And it's not to say that Mitch Trubisky is like the other quarterbacks that I'm referring to there, but
yes. But if
so
Mitch continues to play well, I know we kind of talked about like, oh, Kenny Pickett's going to be the quarterback come week 4. Is this going to be another Mitch goes 3-0 and then gets benched? Poor guy. I'm curious to see how this all plays out because again, he didn't look half bad.
if they don't need to play Pickett, I don't think they will. So if he's let's say they're shooting for division or wild card. As long as they're still in contention for those, I think they'll keep riding with Mitch, especially if he's like not out there throwing 3 interceptions or whatever. Because okay, my big beef with the game was that the Steelers defense looked great. Obviously, the kind of only blind spot was again not being able to guard Chase, but nobody in the NFL has been able to figure that out quite yet. So it's not like it's a Steelers issue. It's that they created 5 turnovers, including a pick 6, and yet somehow the Bengals were still in the game. Like, how did that happen? How do you get 5 turnovers and you have to go to overtime thanks to a blocked extra point? Like, it shouldn't have been that close. So while Trubisky was efficient and didn't do anything disastrous, I'm kind of questioning how the Steelers didn't put that game away in like the first half or by the end of the third quarter.
That's fair. I don't disagree. Um, Fortunately, I didn't see much of the second half other than the highlights, so I can't speak extremely educated on that. But that is a great point. Um,
So just probably like a lot of lack of third down conversions or lack of sustained drives is what I was getting from Red Zone Channel, but it just seems like crazy because every time they were showing highlights, it was the Bengals on the field. And it's just like,
yeah, yeah,
is the Steelers offense doing anything? So curious on that one, but hey, Steelers get to host Patriots this week. I'm pretty confident with the Steelers. We'll touch on the Patriots here in a second.
yeah.
Uh, your former offensive coordinator was Nathaniel Hackett made his debut last night with Denver as the Russell Wilson revenge game, going back to Seattle for the very first time since being traded. And the Seahawks won 17-16, just like every single person in America predicted. Uh, um, I kind of want to start on this one. So, how do you make 4 red zone trips, fumble twice, and get 2 field goals? And then when the game's on the line, when you have the ball with 50 seconds to go and it's 4th and 5 or 4th and 6 or whatever, you take the ball out of the guy you just guaranteed like 40 something million a year to have Brandon McManus kick a 64-yard field goal to take the lead. Well, then on top of that, he misses, and then you have 2 timeouts with 20 seconds to go, and you use both timeouts as like I don't know what to prolong your agony. It just makes you look like a douche, to be honest.
It's the most bizarre ending. Well, I shouldn't even say ever because Seattle on Monday nights is just known for bizarre endings. So Russell Wilson apparently gets to bookend his Monday night career in Seattle with the fail Mary, and now I don't know what you call this. The
That was
fail,
his first Monday night game.
yeah,
Wow.
because he was drafted in 2012, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Was that 2012?
yeah, that was
God, that was
September
so
of
long
2012. That
ago.
was when the refs were
I
on
know. I
strike.
don't miss that. Don't miss the
Uh,
replacement refs. Oh my
but
god.
it's just so on brand for Seattle to have just a nutty game like that in prime time because I feel like that always happens whenever Seattle's on Monday night or Sunday night football. So it should have seen that one coming. Feel like an amateur fan for not seeing that coming. But I'll tell you why Nathaniel Hackett did that, Matt. Nathaniel Hackett learned from the best in head coach Matt LaFleur that when you're facing a fourth down late in the fourth quarter, you always take the ball out of your future Hall of Fame quarterback's hands and opt for a field goal attempt. So kudos to him for taking notes during the NFC Championship game in 2021 against Tampa Bay and doing making the right call. But in all seriousness, there are so many other ways he could have approached that last minute. I know, like, if on the Manning cast, I know Peyton was like, let's call a timeout. Let's call a timeout. Let's get ourselves together here. Uh, see, there's option one. You call the timeout and you draw up your best, fourth and medium play and try to get the first down. Now you have 2 timeouts left. Worst case scenario, you don't get it. There's 50 seconds or so left on the clock, and he can still use those 2 timeouts like he chose to do with 15 seconds left on the clock. Other scenario is you just hurry up, you run the play, and worst case scenario, you give him the ball back with 3 timeouts, and you try to stop him and still get the ball back with 15 seconds. And then option C is whatever the hell that was of let's try to make the longest field goal in NFL history with all of our timeouts, but we're also going to run the clock down with the guy we just paid $250 million to sitting on the bench. Like, I don't know. I want to say I feel bad for Nathaniel Hackett, but oof, that was rough. That was very, very rough as a uh, first time showing.
It was a bad time to leave a bad first impression.
Very bad on national TV. And I don't know if you listened to the post game with Scott Van Pelt interviewing Joe Buck and Troy Aikman. I happened to stay up for it because I couldn't fall asleep. And just the three of them going in on Hackett too was quite entertaining. So I did not watch any of the shows today, but I can't imagine the Stephen A. Smiths and the Shannon Sharps of the world how they felt about this whole situation and the Skip Baylesses.
Especially you're talking about a franchise that has hope for the first time since Peyton Manning left the team or retired. And man, that has to be wind out of the sails. Although I will say, so for the Seahawks side of things, Geno Smith looked serviceable. He looked comfortable and shifty around the pocket, and accuracy seemed good. He's going to need a lot of help from Metcalf and Lockett for the rest of the season to keep that offense going. So if one of them goes down, that I think that team's in, I mean, I already think the team's in trouble, and I think this is just an aberration. But with the Broncos, you can take some positives that they were able to get in the red zone multiple times. So they'll be able to figure that out, I think. And
Because I don't think
Jerry Judy
Russ
looked very good.
Jerry Judy did look really good. Because I don't think that Russ played in the preseason either. So you could kind of point to that as well as okay, maybe the cobwebs are finally knocked off.
Might be a reoccurring theme of this episode.
Might be. I tell you what though, despite allowing Geno Smith to look a little competent, I don't know if it was the ESPN cameras or the field mics, but that defense was flying around and popping pads. I don't know if you noticed that too, but I felt like they were just headhunting the whole night.
They looked really good in the second half. So
Yes.
I'm whatever adjustments they made, kudos to them because their defense looked much better. So those are kind of the games that we wanted to kind of expand our thoughts on. Some of these other ones, there's not too much to share. So Browns in the Baker Bowl beat the Panthers on a last second field goal from my LSU boy, Cade York. So he hit a long field goal to win the game after Mayfield got them into field goal range. Not too much exciting in the game. Miles Garrett got a sack on Mayfield. Mayfield to Robbie Anderson for a long game was kind of funny, thinking back to when Robbie Anderson said that he didn't want Mayfield as his quarterback. Both teams, I still think, are going to be having a tough season. So I think all it proved is the Panthers are going to be having a tougher season. um, and Matt Rule's last season, probably. Anything stand out to you there? Any
I think I
surprised that Baker didn't get his revenge?
a little bit, but I think I also forgot just how good the Browns defense is.
That's
Uh
why I picked. That's the only reason I picked him.
you always hear Miles Garrett and Miles Garrett is good. But they've got depth in all three levels and yeah, you kind of forget that with the Browns.
Yeah. So good on Jacoby Brissett leading the team to victory. I think he's going to be an admirable stand-in. I still think they're just going to have a tough time with when the competition thickens a little bit. Chiefs went to Arizona, crushed the Cardinals 44-21. Patrick Mahomes already looks in MVP form. Grain of salt. We'll see what he's like and against a much tougher opponent Thursday night this week against the Chargers. But the Chiefs offense looked really good. Edwards-Helaire looked really good. Kelsey looked really good. Ball distribution, there wasn't one dominating receiver. It was really well distributed, kind of like they were predicting. So Juju did have a handful of catches though and looked very comfortable in the offense. So everything rolling there. But to focus on the Cardinals, it really seemed like they are missing DeAndre Hopkins. It really seemed like they are missing a true number one receiver. Hopkins is suspended the first 6 games for PED use. So, and Christian Kirk departed the team for Jacksonville. So Murray seemed like he was able to, you know, keep using his speed and feet and whatnot to try and make plays. But at the end of the day, it just didn't seem like their offense had a direction to go without a true number one to kind of back Murray out of a hole.
Yeah, I didn't get to see much of that game other than what was on Red Zone, but eh, Patrick Mahomes just put the whole league back on notice that, hey, I'm the best quarterback in the NFL. I don't care what the rest of my division looks like and how much hype they get. We still have to run through Kansas City, and the road to the Super Bowl might still run through Kansas City.
Yeah, I think they put the rest of the AFC West on notice that they're still there, or maybe top 10 coach Cliff Kingsbury isn't as good as people think. Could be that too. Chargers hosted the Raiders, which could have confused me because there was more Raiders fans in LA that day. But the Chargers hosted the Raiders. They did have to use. Oh, I forgot to mention that for the Rams too. Isn't it all weird that both the LA teams have to use a silent count at home because it's too loud for them when they're on offense?
Yeah, I love it. LA, true football town.
I think it would drive me nuts as a quarterback if I'm at home and I'm having to use a silent count and having trouble communicating with my guys at a home game. I would go nuts.
It's kind of funny because last year, since the Super Bowl is in SoFi, I feel like we didn't really talk enough about the fact that 2 years in a row, the Super Bowl champs won it in their home stadium, but neither of them really felt like it because the Tampa Bay Super Bowl was minimum capacity, and LA is just not a football town, so there wasn't it wasn't like it was Rams house. I also think it's funny that
Right.
that is their rally cry, the Rams house, and they like have to say that even though oftentimes there are fewer Rams fans there than the opposing team.
Yeah. Doesn't seem like a Rams house, but neither here nor what are they going to do when LA plays LA? Are they going to sell out the game?
Yeah, and there's going to be Raiders jerseys and Packers jerseys and Chiefs jerseys,
Yeah.
and it's going to look like the
Feels
Super
like a
Bowl.
London game.
Yeah, yeah, literally, it basically is. It's gonna be London on the West Coast.
So Justin Herbert looked good, very good. Eckler looked good. Chargers defense, Khalil Mack debut, 3 sacks, looked really good. But that's not the debut we want to talk about for that game. We want to talk about Devontae Adams and all of his catches and great routes and yards and everything that he did to look special and make Derek Carr look good, even though Derek Carr looked like shit. But Devontae Adams did not look like shit.
No, he did not. What, 10 catches, like 140 yards and a touchdown? Was that the stat line?
Something like that. Sounds about right.
I said it from the moment he left. I hope he goes on to continue setting the world on fire because he is a treat to watch. It hurt my soul a little bit to see, but I don't think Devontae would have saved Green Bay on Sunday anyways. I will see how the rest of the season plays out with Derek Carr as his quarterback. I probably placed Derek Carr on too high of a pedestal coming into the season, but Derek Carr just kind of did Derek Carr things and threw into quadruple coverage on a few occasions, just trying to almost force feed it to Devontae, which been there, know how that feels. So,
What?
yeah. So I'm curious to see if they're able to, and I think they will with Josh McDaniels, kind of strike a balance of, hey, let's make sure we get 17 the ball, but also let's not forget we have Darren Waller and Renfro.
What's the thing? Renfro. So old Bears friend alert. Bryce Callahan is the slot corner for LA this year. Renfro had 3 catches. I don't know how many targets he garnered, but he had 3 catches, which
Yeah.
is way lower than anybody would have expected.
Yep.
So yes, definitely. I mean, that could have been a contributing factor. Maybe he was just forcing it to Devontae. Maybe he was just panicking. Maybe the Chargers defense is really good because I'm assuming he probably is averaging about 2 seconds to throw when you got Mack and Bosa coming at you. But yeah, talk about two teams going into week 2 that need a win already. Cardinals Raiders is the matchup in Las Vegas. So
Who you got?
keep our eyes on that one. I can't tell you.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Check the picks.
Secretive.
Yes. And then, yeah, like I said, some of these we'll just touch on really quickly. The Giants start out 1-0 with a win over the Titans, thanks to a risky 2-point conversion at the end instead of going for the tie and possibly an overtime, or for a Titans to beat you by 3. Saquon Barkley looked really good. Dable and James got into it at the sideline at one point after Jones threw a bad back shoulder interception in the end zone. Titans, pretty boring. Derrick Henry did fine. Tannehill had a throw or two.
Turns out AJ Brown's kind of
Um,
important.
yeah, that was kind of the overarching theme I got from that game was one, AJ Brown is important, and two, it's always, especially some of these games, it's really nice to have a nice kicker. Never hurts to have a good kicker on your
Mm-mm.
team. So the only question I really have for you, so Dable electing to go for 2 when it's 20-19 with 50 seconds to go or whatever. Was that coaching decision more impressive, or was it equal parts? Were you more disappointed that the Titans kind of, for a team that went what, like 13-4 last year and was the AFC leaders, home field advantage? Would you say Dable's performance as a coach was more impressive than the Titans were objectively bad, or which one stood out to you more than the other?
Personally, Dable, because even last year when they were the 1 seed, I wasn't a total believer of the Tennessee Titans. It's hard to fully get behind Ryan Tannehill still. Um, and I mean, Derrick Henry's a monster, but I'm still waiting for the day that the tread runs out on those tires because those things have been going 120 miles an hour for the last 5 seasons. Um, but I love the call to go for 2, for lack of a better phrase. Put the nuts on the table and show them what's up and get out of there with a win in your first game. I think is awesome. I think he earned the respect of a lot of the guys on that team. Looks like they had a lot of fun in the locker room. Kind of looked like Club Dub from a few years ago in Chicago, and it sounds like the players are happy with him. So, uh, I mean, good for New York. I don't know how much this will amount to in the long run, but
If we're making comparisons to the 2018 Bears, they should just fire him now. Just cut your losses now and don't go down these 4 years of misery. Dolphins, Patriots. Tua is now 4-0 against New England. As much as we like to slander him on this podcast, you got to tip your cap to him a little bit there. He had a couple really bad throws. He had one toss up to Tyreek where Tyreek literally ripped it out of the defender's hands and prevented an interception. And he took it a further 10 or 15 yards or whatever. And so people are going to be like, oh, look at that 25-yard pass to Tyreek. Ooh. It's like, okay, but really, that was an interception. That was just an elite play by a receiver who's out there to make plays, bailing out his quarterback. That was not Tua doing anything special there. That was Tua getting very lucky with that he had Tyreek there. So had some pretty bad throws, but also had some pretty good ones. Coach, well, I get confused now. There's a McDaniels and a McDaniel. Coach McDaniel gutsy call on fourth down, 4th and 7 to go for it, and it resulted in a whatever 40, 50-yard touchdown to Jalen Waddle. Mac Jones doesn't look like he has a whole lot of help. I mean, I don't like Mac Jones, but it also just seems like, I mean, we talked, and this could be an overreaction Monday thing, but they just don't look all together on New England's offense. And I think they're, as I've stated on the record, I think they're going to be in for a tough season.
yeah, I think you're spot on, and I probably should have seen the light a little bit sooner, but I think that offense is in for a rough few weeks. As far as Tua being 4-0 against Belichick, I don't know if that says more about where the Patriots have been the last few seasons or where Tua is. I think it's probably more about the
Tua the
Patriots.
GOAT. He's
Um,
the GOAT.
but I'll also say the Patriots do have a very poor track record when they go on the road down to Miami. Nonetheless, good for Tua. Um, and good for Tyreek to catch a touchdown from the most accurate quarterback in the NFL.
Which is odd too, because they actually went down. The Patriots went down 5 days early to try and acclimate themselves to the weather in Miami, the heat and whatnot, and they still got their doors blown off.
Mhm.
So that sucks. Saints beat the Falcons on a last-second field goal. So Jameis Winston had a really not great first half and a really good second half. Mariota had a pretty crippling fumble in the red zone to put the game out of reach. He fumbled, and that really hurt the Falcons. But one thing I wanted to highlight from this game was Falcons did have the ball last to try and get into field goal range, and I believe Mariota threw an incompletion as time expired, but Marshawn Lattimore absolutely lit up a defenseless receiver in the middle of the field to get a 15-yard unnecessary roughness penalty. And since it was a penalty, you can't end the game. So they moved the ball 15 yards up, got him into Young Hui Koo field goal range, but because he had to drive it so low, it was blocked. So they did survive, but man, that would have been a really shitty way to end or a shitty way to lose a game on a unnecessary penalty outside of the play.
Dumb. Just dumb. Very dumb. Did you see the stat on the Falcons that in the last like 2 seasons, there's 5 teams that have blown like double-digit fourth quarter leads, and the Falcons have done it 3 of the 5 times.
Didn't they have a habit of this last year too?
Yeah, that's what I mean. In the
Or
last
was it 2 years
the
ago?
last 2 or 3 seasons, it's happened 5 times, and 3 of them have been the Falcons.
Because remember when Big Dick Nick entered the game and
Yep.
we looked completely incompetent, and all of a sudden we beat the Falcons out of nowhere, and
Yep.
it was pretty wild. And one of those games, like we're going somewhere, and it's like, well, but we're not. But
Yep.
that's fine.
This.
So I do have hope for the Falcons. They looked much better than I thought they would. So and Mariota doesn't look halfway incompetent. So I do think they can go somewhere this season more than I was expecting. But they still have a pretty untalented roster all the way through, and they did hire a former Bears GM Ryan Pace, who was our previous GM, and when the Bears would start kind of weeding out their roster of some of the Pace picks, Ryan Pace, who's now an executive on the Falcons, they would like pick them up, and I'm thinking, it's not like you're a former Rams executive who just won a Super Bowl and is going to kind of like a low hanging team, and you're picking up guys who were on your Super Bowl winning roster. Like you're picking up guys that were on a 5-win team last year, many of whom either weren't impactful or didn't see the field much. And we're thinking that's going to be a winning recipe. I just don't. The logic doesn't make sense in my black and white brain. But be nice if that happened to the Packers if you guys ever, fired anybody ever.
Yeah, we'll see.
The Lions lost. Oh, shucks. I will say it was a lot closer than I thought it was, and they did a pretty good job of coming back. Amon-Ra St. Brown did keep his catch streak going, so he's now one of 5 people to record 8 or more catches in 7 straight games. So congratulations to him. DeAndre Swift looked really good. Goff, I think at one point in the second quarter was like 3 of 9 for 15 yards or something, but obviously they clicked at some point. Jalen Hurts looked pretty good and accurate, which I always think was his like, he was mobile, got a strong arm, but his accuracy is kind of lacking. Accuracy looked really good. AJ Brown looked amazing. So we'll have to keep our eyes on if one of the missing components here was having an AJ Brown on your team, because obviously we talked about how it hurts the Titans, but man, it's also weird. Devontae Smith didn't get a single catch either, which is kind of bizarre. But AJ Brown, have a day.
I would say as an Eagles fan, I'd be concerned that we let the Lions hang around this long, but this is just the Lions' MO with Dan Campbell is they always hang around in games that should probably be runaways. So I'll be curious to see who do the Eagles have next week?
Vikings on Monday night
That's right. That's right. So that'll be a really true test for both of those teams, I think. Um,
for sure,
so that'll
because one of
be
those teams wasn't tested this week.
so that'll be a. I'm not gonna make a comment yet. So that'll be a very exciting game for that exact reason, because I want to see how that Eagles offense does against the Vikings defense.
Buccaneers 19, Cowboys 3. Probably the most boring game of the week, if I'm being honest. For being the opening Sunday night game last year, or was it the third? Was it the opening game
It was an
last
opening
year?
game last year.
That one was a lot of fun. This one was not. So Tom Brady looked okay, not great, not terrible. Didn't do anything too terrible, but just they didn't look in sync on offense. Maybe because of the lack of preseason. Let's see. But on the Cowboys side, which is much more concerning. So Dak hurt his thumb on a throw. I think his hand hit someone's helmet. Requires surgery. Thumb's not broken, but there's something jacked up with his thumb. And the expected turnaround time was 6 to 8 weeks, which would put him actually right when he comes to Lambeau, would be a safe bet for when he's going to return. Jerry Jones said today 4 weeks, which I don't know what his works cited on that was, if it's a crack pipe or something, but
Unless he's on that Russell Wilson fast track that Russell tried to do last year and ended up hurting him more
that
in the
didn't really
long
work.
run. No, that
I
was a
was say
terrible
it didn't
idea.
really work. So I mean, at this point, like if they start 0-4 with the Eagles thinking, if we're thinking the Eagles are going to keep rolling or at least be pretty measured the rest of the year, they are going to have a tough sled. So, I mean, between that, Gallup is still out. They're missing some key people on their offensive line. They Micah Parsons looked really good on the other side of the ball. Trayvon Diggs, I think, looked more in control and less. Uh, he didn't look as erratic. Now, I would take a in control Trayvon Diggs who gets 4 interceptions per year over a Trayvon Diggs who gets 12 interceptions but lets up the most yards because he's jumping routes when they're doing double moves or whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, I think the Cowboys are in trouble already. And I think one of the key identifiers too is I think people are slowly starting to realize how important Amari Cooper was to that offense. And what they trade him for, like a fifth.
Ham sandwich.
So, I mean, Cooper did. He obviously made his debut for the Browns this weekend. He looked open several times, but unfortunately racked up 3 catches. But there's a couple pretty piss poor throws to him there. So I think Cooper is going to be just fine in Cleveland. But Cowboys, they're going to need to have someone open other than CeeDee Lamb, and CeeDee only had 2 catches on 10 targets, I think. So not their best day, and it's going to be an uphill battle. They host Cincinnati, and I think Cincinnati's about to take some anger out on them, so that'll be tough.
Yeah, I think with Cooper Rush as your guy, I think the writing might be on the wall for Mike McCarthy if they start 1-3 or 0-4 or whatever. So maybe it's just a long play by
Hey,
Jerry
he beat the
Jones.
Vikings last year.
It might just be a long play by Jerry Jones to get him out the door. I don't know.
We'll see.
Hey Dak, smash your hand.
Ravens beat the Jets. Another pretty uneventful game. I mean, Lamar Jackson looked pretty stunning, and Joe Flacco racked up a lot of yards, but didn't look very stunning. And other than that, I would say I'm a little disappointed in the Jets' performance. It's actually one I had the Jets picked, and then I swapped it out for the Ravens before I published our thing because they were giving me the vibes. It doesn't sound like Zach Wilson's going to be back this week either when they go to Cleveland. So maybe another winnable one there for the Browns.
Did you see how many
But
passing attempts Joe Flacco had?
I did not.
Without
But
looking, can you guess?
Let's guess 51.
59.
Good lord.
He's not going to be able to throw the ball
Well,
next week.
I did like Garrett Wilson, rookie out of Ohio State for the Jets. That's the thing is like Jets had a lot of like good individual performances. They just sucked as a team.
Yep.
And I don't know who allowed Duvernay to beat him twice, but whatever. Let's see. Colts and Texans tied. Do they do a two-tie all-tie in the NFL?
They should.
Do you want to explain to the folks at home what a two-tie all-tie
It means
is?
so to put it in is a compact explanation as possible. We have this game that is typically played with rubber ducks, sometimes NFL bobbleheads or diecast Indy cars, where it's a dice game and you race 6 lanes. So whatever two you roll 2 dice, you roll 3 and a 4. Those lanes move. At the end, you could have 2 lanes that tie. If those 2 lanes tie, the whole race ties. You restart. Everyone has to replicate their bet. So I say we do it in the NFL. So if 2 games tie, so if like the Steelers and Bengals would have tied, I think the whole NFL ties. You just got to play week 1 all over again.
I think actually that would work. Or if the Colts and Texans tie, let's say it was the Colts and the Commanders. Let's say 2 teams that are not in the same division. If they tie, then everybody else in the division ties as well.
I like that.
So in this case, Jaguars and well, actually, it would have helped the Jaguars because they lost, but the Jaguars and the Titans would have also tied because the
Which then in turn would have had the Commanders and Giants tied. So look at that. NFC East, NFC Beast, and the AFC South just ties all
and
around.
the Cowboys wouldn't have had a loss. They would have had a tie.
Nope.
So this is the future of football when we take over
Mm-hmm.
right there.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I was at a bachelor party on Saturday, and one of the guys there who I've known for a couple of years had a great idea for. I don't know if he heard this from somewhere or if he was talking about it with someone else, but instead of doing onside kicks, if you are the kicking team and wanting the ball back, because onside kicks have been completely ruined in the last 5 years in the NFL. You get the ball at whatever the 30 or 25 or 35, whatever it starts nowadays, and you line up on offense with a 4th and 15. And if you convert the 4th and 15, you get to keep going. And if you don't, other team gets the ball, just like in the standard sense of the game. I feel like that would work a lot better than an onside
Yep.
kick,
I
if I'm
love
being
that.
honest.
I love that idea. Make it if you want to make it more difficult, make it a 4th and 20. I don't know. 4th and 15 is pretty
Yeah,
difficult, but either way, just
yeah, 4th and 15 is pretty tough. So when I heard that idea, it just clicked in my head. I'm like, that's a great idea. So, anyways, not my idea. I don't want to take credit for it. So,
do you,
Clem, good idea. But
so right before we started recording, we saw that the Colts waived Rodrigo Blankenship, which bad news for my fantasy team. But also, if the NFL were to implement this is going to sound really silly, a kickoff where at the end of overtime, the kickers just take turns kicking field goals and
oh boy,
they continue to move the ball back. You start at a extra point distance, then you go 35 yards, 40 yards, 45, 50, and so on. Rodrigo might have saved his job, so he should probably start petitioning for that rule change.
can you imagine how much kickers would get paid if that rule came
Dude,
in?
it'd be
Like
incredible.
Justin Tucker would make 15 million a year
Be incredible.
just for like the one or two overtimes they might
Yep.
get.
Or like in the off chance they go to the overtime in the Super Bowl.
Oh my god, the
But
pressure.
but it's also if there is a couple ties each year though, so very likely.
The Vikings would be screwed. They would miss, and 98 would be brought up all over
Yep.
again. Let's see. Last game before we get to the ones we've been patiently waiting for. The Commanders beat the Jaguars 28-22. Uh, Dotson, the rookie out of Penn State for the Commanders, looked really good. Trevor Lawrence, all right. I think he does a very good job of making space in the pocket and working with pretty substandard tools on his team. Not the best, most talented team out there by any means. The one thing that he absolutely needs to work on, though, is if he steps up in the pocket and is throwing a 40-yard pass, he's going to throw it as hard as he can. If he steps up in the pocket and throws a 3-yard check down, he's going to throw it as hard as he can. And there were some that were definitely catchable and some that were, off the hands. But when you see Lawrence just throwing an absolute missile at a guy from 6 yards away, it's hard to completely fault the receiver for dropping it. And I feel like I noticed it in the limited capacity on red zone at least 4 times that he threw missiles at guys when they weren't exactly warranted. I mean, I know like Rodgers has some missiles, but he also knows how to put some little touch on them here and there and little loft, make it a little easier on the receivers.
Yeah, and on the other side of the ball, we got the full Carson Wentz experience. I mean, that was Carson Wentz's career from point A to point B, baby. That's it right there. That's the Carson Wentz you got, Washington. Boy, what a ride.
I would not. I mean, when the Bears talked about getting him last year and then ended up getting Dalton, which also didn't thrill me, I was really thinking, well, because we would have had to trade for Wentz. At least Dalton we just signed, but yeah, I'm really glad we didn't have that experience. But yeah, if you ever want to sponsor the show or want to submit some fan questions, please feel free to do so. This would be the time we would give a sponsor shout out. So thank you so much. It's a Mama Hickey submitted a fan question this week, so thank you, Mama Hickey.
Appreciate you, Carla.
Um,
Appreciate you.
yes, is a question about: do we know the last time both Super Bowl participants would lose the opening game the following year? And I'm gonna be honest, I saw that question like 10 minutes before we started recording, so I didn't have too much time to look into it. But more so, instead of I can maybe do some research about that tomorrow and give you guys an answer next week. But more so, commenting on the fact that how bizarre it is that both of them lost, because again, Bengals basically beat themselves, and then the Rams looked pathetic. I know the Bills are a very good team, but the Rams look pathetic, and that's just not what we're used to seeing. I mean, I know the Buccaneers won last year. Uh, did the Packers win their opening game after whatever Super Bowl they won 14 years ago?
They did. It was the Randall Cobb kick return against the Saints game.
Randall Cobb did kick returns.
Yeah, dude, you don't remember that kick return? He was an amazing special teamer. He was amazing on special teams. He like flipped over a guy and returned a kickoff for a touchdown in his first game as a Packer. It was pretty cool.
So I'll have to look into that more. But yes, it was very shocking that both of them lost. I mean, kind of curious to see if that's ever actually happened. But
I could see the Giants
but thank
losing.
you.
I could see the Giants losing after they won the Super Bowl.
No, what? No, never, never. Probably because it was against the Patriots next week. But what is your fan question then? Who is it from?
All right, this one is from Andrew Bianon. Says longtime listener, first time caller. He has enjoyed all of our episodes thoroughly. Andrew says, so this is not a football question. So
Oh boy.
this might stump you. It stumped me when I first saw it. He says, if Lighting and Hickey woke up in a Freaky Friday situation, how would the two of you switch back?
How did they switch back in Freaky Friday?
I think you have to, isn't it like you have to kind of like come to terms with something? It's like you learn something about yourself and the other person. I think
I
that's how it
mean,
works. That's how it worked in the Little Dicky
I
song.
would, I would immediately shave because I think my face would be too hot all day.
No, it's not. I promise you it's not. I haven't shaved in quite a while, and it's not.
Well, I just feel like I get a freaking like little barely anything here on my neck, and it drives me nuts. I don't know. Would we have to like you as a person as Lighting would have to wear like a Bears jersey or
Yeah, that's
something,
what I was
and
gonna
me
say.
as a Hickey would have to
Yes,
wear a Packers. But I've worn a Packers jersey before. I don't think you've ever worn a Bears jersey.
I have not.
Oh, we have to.
We
Well,
do have to do a bet for this week's upcoming game.
well, yeah, but what we always do is we always agreed that we would do the Soldier Field game because the Bears need all the help they can get when they play the Packers. And in my bet, which I'm over 2 on now, and I've had to wear a Packers jersey at Road America 2 years in a row. Actually, we didn't have to do it last year because you forgot. It's a shame. So,
Did.
but I, not my fault.
So yeah, but I
Uh,
think to switch it back, I don't. We might have to even go farther than switching the jerseys. I'm trying to think. Is there like a food that you like that I don't? Like I feel like there's like some like trade
do
offs
you like
here.
king crab?
No, I'm not a seafood fan, so I guess I have to wear a Justin Fields
That'd be one for
jersey.
me. And
Eat king crab.
I, you just said you went out for Chinese.
No, I didn't. Mexican.
Duh.
No, I don't like.
Okay.
I'm not
Well,
a
it
huge
depends what kind of
Chinese fan.
Mexican. What kind of Mexican? What do you define? Are you talking like a burrito or a taco? Or are you talking like a what do they call it when they cook it like everything in a skillet?
A fajita.
Is that what it's called?
Yes, it's called
I
a
thought it was more
fajita.
elaborate than that. I thought it was more
No,
elaborate than that.
and them shits come out sizzling.
No, I'm okay. Well, I'm not a fajita guy, so I guess if you were wearing a Bears jersey, or if I was wearing a Packers jersey, eating a fajita
There you go.
or
And you
chimichanga
there you
or
go. You can
something.
wear the Aaron Jones jersey with his big sombrero. Eat fajitas. I will wear the Justin Fields jersey, go swimming on Soldier Field, and eat king crab like I'm sitting at the beach. There we go. That's how we switch back.
There we go. Well, when that day comes, maybe I will be using my piloting skills to my advantage and going to enjoy it. And you can use your Microsoft Excel skills and get nowhere.
Do some calculation about how to switch back.
Let's start with the Bears because there's a little more cheer and optimism with the Bears game than there is the Packers game.
So, Mr. Bears fan, how are you feeling after a week 1 upset?
Happy but cautious.
So
I Oh, go
I
ahead.
have some more in-depth questions, but I want to know just overall, when you step back and look at this game, do you how much do you think this win had to do with the weather slash Trey Lance looking a little bit inept, or the Bears starting to put something together on offense?
So the two takeaways I have, one is that you can't really tell a whole lot based on the weather. So I don't rate either offense quite yet because that was not a true indication of how either team's going to be performing the rest of the year. Justin Fields could go up to Green Bay and throw 4 picks next week, and I wouldn't be surprised. And Trey Lance could go to San Francisco against Seattle and put up 350 yards and 4 touchdowns, and I wouldn't be surprised because I don't think you can make a discernible opinion about either offense based on that shit show in Chicago. I mean, it's not really. I mean, I know we like to rag on Soldier Field and the playing conditions there, but that was almost on the verge of being postponable. It was so bad.
Dude, that field is going to be wrecked.
Yeah, they just installed the whatever turf, new grass, whatever, like 4 days ago, and it's a complete write off already. I've never seen well because you shared the photo of the fact that the lines weren't straight, which is pathetic. That's peak Soldier Field right there. But I've never seen numbers just turn to liquid and just disappear in the middle of the game. Obviously when it's snowing, you can't see the numbers, but I've never seen like rain just make it into liquid in the modern era of football. You get like mud bowls every now and then,
So
but
think about I'm going to sidetrack here. So you as a Bears fan, think about some of the, and I know this is somewhere else on the rundown about the Arlington Heights update, but think about like the most memorable weather games in the NFL. And I
snow.
will snow, but remember the Fog Bowl against the Eagles? The Bears played against the Eagles
My
at
dad was
Soldier Field.
there
Was he?
because I think that was Walter Payton's last game.
I think you might be right. As an uneducated Bears fan, I'm not sure.
As an educated Bears fan, I don't know. But yeah, I get your point. I mean, the photos that came out of that game were incredible. Like the one where Jalen Johnson was saying we just made Trey Lance play quarterback or whatever, and it was Roquan Smith like putting Lance's face into the mud. Like there is just some really good, yeah. And you just did the Justin Fields, which is a soccer thing. You win a trophy in soccer, your whole team like goes down the fields and slides in front of your fans. But they're doing it on dry grass. They can slide a mile on those things. But in Chicago when the time expired and they all went and did that, I kind of got a little happy. So, but yeah, I think that was number one is that I don't think you can make any sort of argument. Mike Martz, stupid dick. Sorry, I didn't want to go back and edit the F word out. Uh, he's taking cheap shots at Fields and Lance Day, and we don't need to spend too much time on that. But the second thing is, which I tweeted about, is for the first time in 4 years, I felt like the Bears came out in the second half and actually made an adjustment or two. What I mean by that is I think a prime example of what I'm talking about with Matt Nagy was the Bears Packers game at Lambeau last year. It was like what 23-17 at half or something like that, and the game ended up 45-30. It's because we went in all complacent, like, oh, we're doing good things. Let's just build on that, rather than like, oh, hey, well, now that the Packers know what we're going to do for the rest of the game, they're going to do this, this, and this.
and the
So we need to now do this, this, and
and I'm
this.
pretty sure like the last touchdown or two from Chicago was kind of garbage time, anyways. So it was even more
No,
depressing than that.
yeah. So it just felt like, the first half, one of the things I was thinking with Luke Getzey calling plays is it kind of didn't seem like he realized it was raining really heavy out or something. Like it seemed like we were just doing our normal offensive playbook for the first half and it wasn't working. I think Fields was 3 of 8 for 30 yards and one really, really bad interception by him. Um, but in the second half, I think Fields' athletic ability just kind of took over and carried us a little bit. I mean, when he danced around the pocket, got away from a really good 49ers defense and found Dante Pettis all by himself on the right side of the field, who ran it in for a 55-yard touchdown. I thought that was awesome. Love that. The Equinemius, I did not realize it was Equinemius St. Brown's first career touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
That's a little sad that never happened in Green Bay. But again, that was a great read, great throw. Good job. Khalil Herbert, kind of backing up my argument that you don't pay running backs because he looks every bit as good as David Montgomery. Montgomery looks good. Don't get me wrong. But would I pay Montgomery $10 million a year that I could pay Khalil Herbert to do for 750? Nope. So yeah, I think Cole Kmet not getting a target was kind of concerning, but again, we'll see what happens. I don't know what the weather's going to be like on Sunday in Green Bay, but I'm looking forward to seeing a more based version of what our offense is going to look like because you can't take too much out of the game. But I was really happy we won. I was really happy with the halftime adjustments, and I was really happy to see Justin Fields making some really athletic plays out there.
So one correction, Equinemius did have 2 touchdowns in 2020. He had 1 receiving and 1 rushing touchdown.
Why was someone saying that that was his like first touch? Because I know they're not saying it was his first touchdown as a Bear because it's his first game, obviously.
Yeah.
But anyways, but still, that's so he's doubled his receiving touchdowns in one game.
Yes.
Um,
The other question I had for you was, you kind of already answered it, but I agree Justin Fields did not look good in the first half. And I feel like a typical Bears team, to your point, either would have made no adjustments or just kind of like rolled over coming out of the half. I mean, down 10-0, how easy would it have been for them to just say, "Man, the weather is trash. There's no way we're even going to, put up 10 points. Let's just mail this one in and see what we can do next week." Did you feel like there was a different energy on the I don't want to say just offensive side of the football because uh, obviously it's a three-phase game, but did you feel like there was a different mindset maybe from the entire offense in that second half?
100%. I think the guys never seemed down. The coach looked calm on the sideline. Coach Eberflus did a hell of a job the whole game. It just like when I was talking about in preseason or whatever, when we played Seattle, it just looked competent. I wasn't saying, hey, we're gonna go win a ton of games and we're gonna be Super Bowl contending. It was just like we just looked halfway decent. We just looked like a decent team, a well coached team, a team that kind of knew what it was doing, and that was the same on Sunday. It looked like we knew what we were doing. Our defensive game plan was solid. A couple shout outs I want to give. Our secondary looked great. I mean, again, conditions were poor, but Jalen Johnson looked great. Rookie Jaquan Brisker looked great. Rookie Kyler Gordon looked great. And then Eddie Jackson kind of gave me some shades of the Eddie Jackson we paid a shit ton of money for. Really excited to see that. He didn't allow a single catch, had a great interception, which was his first since 2019. So starting to get and if we can have that old Eddie Jackson back, pay him all the money he wants. I don't care. If we have the same Eddie Jackson we had the last 2 years, please get off my roster immediately because that's a lot of cap we're wasting on that. But he looked really good, and I was really happy for him. And then I think I'm going to ask you who what they call in soccer the man of the match was. And I know the Packers didn't win, but you can still probably give a shout out to somebody that had a positive day. The man of the match for me for the Bears was seventh round rookie draft pick Dominique Robinson, defensive end. He had I think 1.5 sacks and a strip, and he looked really good for being a seventh round pick. So I know you were high on Packers mid round offensive lineman picks. After one game, I'm pretty high on this Dominique Robinson guy. I think he looks the part. So really excited to see where that goes. And then the last thing I have before we can wrap up here on the Bears is again rain, blah blah blah, bad conditions. If Trey Lance plays the way that he did on Sunday, he's not going to last in the NFL for 5 years. He took some big physical punishment uh, just from either extending plays and either not going down, not throwing away the ball. I mean, he took some really punishing hits, and the Bears are a pretty physical team, and I know Eberflus is going to coach that into them, but man, it's you can see other mobile quarterbacks out there that they take some hits, obviously, but he was just getting punished. So I really hope for his sake he can either get more time in the pocket, extend plays in a smart way, or slide because I don't know how long a person's body can last taking that kind of punishment each week.
So one other question I had, and it just started to slip my mind as I was So does week 1 change your outlook on the rest of the season? Do you change
Mm,
your win-loss prediction, or do you think you're still kinda happy with where you were at with 6 and 11 or whatever it was, 5 and 12?
Well, I would say I would rate us higher than the Lions now for sure. I would still hover between the 5 to 7 range, though. I don't think. I mean, we do have a very easy schedule, so if we can continue to build, there's a lot of hope. But not enough for me quite yet to say that we're going to be above 500 at this point in time.
Gotcha.
So now we're going to move to the Packers Vikings, which, as many on social media call it, the Vikings Super Bowl every year when they host the Packers. So they've won 2 straight Super Bowls. And as I've shown you before, we both take notes during football.
Yours is a lot
I have
neater
a
than mine, apparently.
I have a full page here. And the game on here that is most filled in for the box is not the Bears 49ers because, again, can't take too much out of that game given the conditions. But we can take a lot out of the Vikings and Packers games based on what we saw. So
Can we?
I'm going to start. Well, we'll get there. I want to start in the same avenue that you started with me. Is how do you feel leaving that game about the Packers?
I mean, I don't wanna say I saw this coming, but I saw this coming. I don't
I think
think I'm
everybody saw
as
this coming.
I don't think I'm as down in the dumps as a lot of other Packers fans because literally not a single thing about this game was surprising to me. I don't know why we're sitting around acting like it's a surprise that the offense looked like they were in shambles when Rodgers has absolutely no chemistry with the receiving core and they didn't have any really in-game experience in the preseason to build on that. Um, it was exactly what I expected. I had been saying it for weeks that I thought we were going to lose by double digits in this game. I've been saying all offseason that I thought we were going to be 1-3 or 2-2 after the first 4 games until we finally got a little bit of traction on offense. I think the only part that was a little bit concerning was all this talk about defense, 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 and we had no game plan for Justin Jefferson. Jair Alexander has said on multiple occasions now that he wanted to be one-on-one with Jefferson, and we wouldn't do it. And Matt LaFleur's response to the media was, we didn't want to just have Jair follow Jefferson because it would have been too confusing for the rest of the defense. To me, that says bad coaching. Like,
Yep.
so the determination that I have come to, and we'll see how this plays out. We still have a full regular season to go, is that the Green Bay Packers might have a top 5 talent level on defense, but we don't have a top 5 defensive coordinator or defensive coaches. And that was always, I don't want to say always a concern last year, but for now the second or third straight game against the Vikings, we've seen Preston Smith lined up one-on-one versus Justin Jefferson. And in what world does that make any sense? So I just hope they get some sort of defensive scheme figured out because I'm more worried about that, honestly, than the offense. The offense is going to get it figured out. Despite Christian Watson's drop on that first deep pass, which, yay, we got a replacement for MVS. He can burn everyone, but he'll drop a sure touchdown. Everyone was so sad to see him go, but don't worry, guys. We got someone a perfect replacement. But despite that, if you go back and look at some of the film, some of his route running looked really good, and he got open a few times. But I'm not surprised 12 didn't go back to him because that's just kind of how 12 plays quarterback. Is if you lose his trust, usually the rest of the game he's not going to come back to you. Uh,
No, that says to his ego.
and I didn't
Oh,
say it was the
what?
right thing to do, but that's just how a guy operates.
All right,
The
you didn't.
I have one other
Bro,
thing on the offense.
you just hit on 8 things I had on my list.
I have one other thing on the offense. So the other issue is a lot of people think Matt LaFleur, really good coach, really good offensive mind, but time and time again, when we don't run the football, we lose football games. Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon combined for a total of 15 carries between the two of them. We ran 17 rush plays. 2 of them were end arounds to Watson and Dobbs, and I think AJ Dillon carried it 10 times, and Aaron Jones did 5 times. if this offense is going to be successful, it's going to run through the run game, no pun intended. So I don't know. Very rarely does this team have two stinkers in a row, so that leaves me a little bit hopeful for this week against Chicago. Um, I
Also, you're
think,
playing the Bears.
yeah, we're playing the number one team in the division, though. I guess the
What-
Vikings technically, because they've got the
I mean,
head-to-head
you're playing a
divisional
team that's
opponents.
beaten you 3 times in 10 years.
Stop setting yourself up for gloating
Dude,
next
you
week.
act like I have any hope. I don't care if we want to know. It's a game in Lambeau when Rodgers is still alive. We're but
And I think he's going to go scorched earth. Maybe I don't. I honestly, I still don't know what the offense is going to look like. I just know we need to run the ball, and I know that we need to build some more chemistry. But I also know that the tight ends looked pretty good, and there was some really nice schemed motions that got them open. Let's just keep doing that, and
okay.
let's figure
Well,
out a
hang on.
defensive
Before
scheme.
you take all
Sorry,
the
I'll
material
stop.
away here,
I'll stop rambling. I'm sorry. I was feeling very impassioned. Oh, but before you asked that, I brought this to our recording specifically to honor our friends in the land of 10,000 lakes that
why?
uh, I just feel like I owe it.
Because they won a Super Bowl.
Yep, since they won the
He's
Super
holding up a
Bowl,
Cannon McGolden.
a pounder, courtesy of Mr. and Mrs. Hickey, that I will commemorate your Super Bowl victory with. And although it's brewed in St. Louis, Missouri, apparently it's the official beer of
Anheuser
Minnesota.
Busch. Oh yeah.
So
All
cheers to you,
right. We'll enjoy
Minnesota.
that.
Congratulations on your second consecutive Super Bowl. Buy your t shirts now before they are all sold out.
The salt is. There's not salt in that beer though, but you are oozing right now. Let's see. Well, you covered like 80 things that I wanted to talk about. Well, let's try to break
Sorry.
some of them down here.
Sorry, when I
So
rant, I can't stop.
I got that. First of all, you talk about Aaron Jones and his lack of touches. Thank God you guys are paying him 12 million a year. But what is your thoughts about the 4th and goal in the first half where I think you were at the 1 yard line and came out into a shotgun formation and ran it up the middle?
I don't know if you can read that. It
Yeah, I
says
sure
play. It
can.
says play call on 4th and goal. Zadarius Smith has seen it half 100 times. And by that I mean that's all we do on these goal to goal situations is we find another way to run a draw play out of shotgun. And I don't get it. It works a lot. It really does because AJ Dillon's a bowling ball and usually the offensive line is moving bodies. But when you're down your two best offensive linemen, it was just I didn't understand that play call. Again, it has worked many times for us, but I just felt like I saw it coming. I literally looked at Michelle and I said, they're going to run a draw up the middle and we're going to get stuffed. And it's exactly what happened. I don't know why Mike McCarthy used to do this a lot on 3rd long. He was always known for like running short dink and dunk plays and hoping to get the first down and yak. And Matt LaFleur's thing apparently is running draw plays on the goal line. So I don't get it. The only thing worse than that is the goal line fade. I would rather have them run the draw than a goal line fade. So
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Anybody watching football knows that there's significantly better play. Well, if you're like a gadget team or you do like tricky stuff all the time and they're expecting that and then you run a drop the middle, be one thing. But yeah, like you said, when you got basically someone who's been on the team for 3 straight years seeing that kind of action now on the Vikings, or you just, I don't know, watch the tape.
And I
Either way.
and a lot of times they do some weird motions. I mean, they ran that play against the Rams a few years back where they like motioned Devontae, and then the Vikings apparently saw that on film because that's how Justin Jefferson scored his first touchdown. They do stuff like that where they'll do like a play action and then dump it off or kind of like a forward pitch to kind of switch it up. I, Maybe I'm just a little extra sensitive to it, but it was just a very predictable play call.
I think the internet told me that the Packers invented the motion about 5 years ago or something. Let's see. Where do I want to go next? I think what are your thoughts about Eric Stokes?
Raw talent who is a okay number two corner. I think
That's more honest than I think most people would be.
Yeah, I think he has the potential to become a good number two corner. He showed a lot of flashes of that last year, but Justin Jefferson, arguably the best receiver in the league, one of the top 5 receivers in the league, undoubtedly. Uh, not clearly not on that that plane yet, and it was very clear that the Vikings knew that, and they purposefully, I think, were attacking Stokes with Jefferson. And I don't know
So
why we were running zone defense as much as we were. That was also kind of bizarre to me. But again, that goes back to we maybe have a top 5 defensive unit, but a top 20 defensive coordinator, maybe.
yeah, I mean, uh, it's hard for me to remain impartial in these games because I don't particularly care for either team. But at the end of the day, I try to be objective, and I just love the game of football more than anything. So to me, just watching the game of football is a lot of fun. When I'm watching a defense that A doesn't put Jair Alexander on Jefferson and B refuses to do any sort of man coverage whatsoever, that is not a defense that I'm afraid of. Now, will the Bears go to Lambeau and beat Green Bay with solid offensive play? No, but I think the Bears are a bad measuring stick. So it's not like I'm sitting here saying the Packers defense sucks. The Packers defense is going to do just fine against many of the teams this season. But like we tend to see in most playoff games, last year excluded, is that that's where they get in trouble is when they actually face a halfway decent quarterback. Because I think the division play, for the most part, for the NFC North the last several years, the QB play has been average. Now, I think if Cousins and this new offense can take off, there might be a threat there for having some decent offensive play coming out of the division for the first time in a long time. So, yeah, I honestly have no idea why the Packers gave Jair Alexander the bag, but then won't put him on the one of the top two receivers in football.
And maybe that's part of the the not playing in the preseason thing is as the season goes on, you add more and more wrinkles to a scheme. Again, the whole not putting a guy one on one because it's going to confuse other players things, I still don't totally get. It's not that hard of a concept to grasp. However, it's week 1. We have 16 games to go. We've seen season's going to ebb and flow. So I'm not totally down in the dumps. I had this counted as a loss anyways. I'm not surprised we lost in this fashion. Truthfully, I thought it was going to be worse. Can spin zone myself into the fact that if Christian Watson catches that pass and we convert that 4th and goal, that it's a completely different, in theory, a completely different ball game. Again, in theory, it's a lot of what ifs. It's a ton of what ifs. Um, but hey, shout out to the Minnesota Vikings offense. Minnesota fans don't like you. Kirk Cousins, I don't like you. Justin Jefferson, I like you. You're awesome. Adam Thielen, you're awesome. Delvin Cook, you're pretty cool. Other than some other stuff you've done off the field. But all that being said, credit where credit's due. Their offense looked pretty damn good. Their defense looked really good. Zadarius Smith, I don't know, you had something in the rundown about him, but I'll let you ask that question so I don't steal more of your content.
Well, last thing before we transition out of this, the hero ball from Rodgers is pretty. The double cover overthrowing your man into a safety interception was as someone who's seen some bad QB play in his life, that was atrocious.
Did you see my tweet?
We're resorting to hero ball what 3 quarters into the season, because that was the first drive of the second half, wasn't it?
No, it was 29 minutes and 33 seconds into the season.
So was
It was
that the end
it
of the
was right
second
at the end of
quarter?
half. It was no, yeah, it was right at the end of the half. So it was kind of a punt.
It was a really bad. Well, I
It
mean,
was a bad punt, yeah.
if you're talking about yardage, it was fine, but that was a horrible decision.
Yeah.
And then the Packers taking out Rodgers with 50 seconds to go and putting in Jordan Love. I know the game wasn't going their way, and I know they weren't going to win regardless of kind of what happened. But I've seen Stranger Things, and to me, it seems kind of defeatist to take out Rodgers and put in Love at that stage in the game. I didn't see it talked about too much on the internet. I don't know if you had any thoughts on it.
No, I didn't really read much into it. That's not that's fairly on brand. Uh they've done it other times. Even again, they weren't going to come excuse me. They weren't gonna come back. The one thing that stood out to me, though, about that drive was obviously the Vikings were in a prevent because they just don't want to get burned over the top. So no surprise that Jordan Love, hit a couple of passes. But did you notice who he was throwing to? You might not have, but it was Josiah DeGuara. Excuse me, this Michelob Golden's got me burping. He is probably our number 4 tight end. This is his
You
3rd
guys have four
season.
tight ends.
Yeah, big dog Mercedes Lewis, Bob Tunyon, Tyler Davis, and DeGuara. DeGuara is also kind of like our quasi fullback. You'll see him line up in the backfield, but I don't think 12 trusts him very much, so he doesn't get a lot. Like you said, Aaron Rodgers has never done anything like that. He doesn't get a ton of attention, I think, from Rodgers, which is kind of a shame because I think he's a better route runner than Tyler Davis, who Rodgers is a fan of. But that's what honestly stood out to me more in that drive, more than the Jordan Love thing. That didn't surprise me.
Where they go? That was it. That was all the games. Just a
That was
couple
it.
more news and notes, and then got to give out a mouth guard for the week.
Do you want to
Let's
ask
see.
me? Didn't you want to ask me who my what do they call it in soccer?
Oh, your man of the match. Who was your pack? And we'll stick to your team. So ignoring the Vikings, who was your man of the match?
Quay Walker, rookie inside linebacker, who unfortunately was the I don't want to say lone bright side on the defense, but one of the brighter spots on the defense. Went down injured, so he's kind of it sounds like he's week to week right now, maybe day to day. I don't think he's going to play against Chicago. But I tell you what,
Bummer.
for someone who is 6'4", big boy, he could move, and he was having a good game. So that was sad to see him get hurt. But if I had to give it to someone on other than him abysmal performance, he's the one standout.
So, we won't do all these today because we're coming up to 2 hours already. The Bears released their Soldier Field replacement renderings by leaving Soldier Field and going to Arlington Heights. So the stadium itself is not designed, but there was a space for the stadium, obviously. But there's this like stadium district thing with a whole bunch of amenities and whatnot, and it looks all pretty damn cool. If you ask me, it looks pretty innovative. Instead of just having, because I know you talked about the stadium district for Lambeau and how they're really making the area super nice and whatnot. Looks like the Bears are planning on doing the same thing with the stadium, but then there's also other facilities going up there that aren't football related. And then the stadium would be fully paid for by the Chicago Bears, but then some of the other parts of that design would be asking for taxpayer funding for it, which I know you have feelings about, but we can save that for another day. So progress is being made, and it pretty much sounds like this is the route they want to take, which I don't blame them one bit. And they're basically saying that this is our only option at this point, and we're not looking at Soldier Field to come back, and we're not looking at building somewhere else. And if they leave their Soldier Field lease in 2026, I believe it was a $70 million buyout clause that they have to pay or something. So you tack on the probably safe estimate $7 to $8 billion project because of all the other stuff besides just the stadium that they're going to have to do. And then, I mean, what's 90 million when you're spending $7 to $8 billion already? So, going to keep our eyes on that, but it's really nice to see progress being made on it. I'm really excited about it. I think it's going to be awesome for the franchise. And I just hope the stadium looks super cool because that's, I think, super important for the value of a team.
I'm just excited to see the state of Illinois and the city of Chicago make a lot of really responsible financial decisions with taxpayer dollars. I can't wait.
They have a really good track record for that.
As a Packers fan and a Wisconsin resident, it puts a smile on my face.
Let's see. Zadarius Smith, we've mentioned a couple times in the episode. He was reported as saying that he wasn't really happy with the vibe he was getting last year when he returned from injury to the Packers facility and whatnot, and said that it was baseless and he felt really disrespected. There was a moment in the game where Rodgers attempted to chip block him or something, and Zadarius threw him down, but then like Rodgers gave him a little playful chirp afterwards. Did you get that vibe last year? Or I mean, I'm not going to sit here and call him a liar because it's all like it's his own perception. So what he perceives to have happened to him, and I'm not going to sit here and tell him it's wrong, but does that shock you at all?
Look, this is Z's thing. He loves to endear himself to his fan base. He did it when he got to Green Bay. He did it when he was in Baltimore. I'm not gonna say he's a liar. He perceived it however he perceived it. My guess is team was on a run, team was in a vibe, team was in a groove. You love to have him back, but there's a certain you know, camaraderie that comes along with being with these people week after week after week after week. And he was gone for almost the whole season. He was out of the building. So it doesn't surprise me that it was a little awkward coming back into it, if indeed that was the case. I don't think he's in Minnesota because of, he said he came here so he could play Green Bay twice a year. No, he's in Minnesota because they offered him more money than Baltimore. Let's not kid ourselves. That's why he's in Minnesota. Um, no hate for Z. I don't. Dude was awesome addition in Green Bay. I think he does a great job of endearing himself to fan bases and bringing energy to a team. He said he built the Packers culture. Not going to totally disagree with that. He brought a different vibe to the locker room that we didn't have before. Uh, so I'm not going to hate on the guy, but I think a lot of what he said was to hype up the rivalry, to endear himself, and to uh, add a little bit of motivation, for himself, the media, the fans, whatever. So that's my take.
I don't have much to say, I guess, because he wasn't my player for the last couple of years, so I guess I can't really comment. But
Put it this way: if he felt so slighted by the team, I don't think he would have come back to play in that divisional game. If he truly
true.
felt so off put, and he sure looked like he was a part of the team during that game. And again, I know it's a different environment, and you only see what's on the camera, but whatever.
You are a hater, sir. Let's see. I want to pick two more before we move on. Lamar Jackson didn't come to an agreement with the Ravens on a long-term extension before his self-imposed deadline. Jackson's another one of these guys that doesn't have an agent, so I'm assuming he was wanting a fully guaranteed contract, like we talked about. Didn't happen, so now it's going to have to wait till the offseason. But hey, made a good case for himself on Sunday with a brilliant game. So we'll keep our eyes on that.
Hey, you said it, self-imposed deadline.
I just don't know what. I mean, I know you lose a percentage of your contract to an agent, but it just seems like a really good idea to have an agent in these situations. And the last one I wanted to touch on was the Leonard Fournette versus Micah Parsons Twitter feud. So there was a play where Micah Parsons was being blocked on the left hand side of the pocket, and Fournette stepped up to assist his offensive lineman by going shoulder to shoulder / shoulder to neck area of Parsons and knocking him straight to the floor. And I think it was PFF tweeted about, oh, look at this Leonard Fournette block. He pancaked him, and Micah Parsons came on to Twitter and voiced his frustrations in colorful language. And Fournette responded with a GIF of the crying Jordan meme. I don't know if you have a side in this, or you just think you're just sitting back and enjoying it.
I thought it was funny as a retired defensive player myself. Very easy to get, very easy. Hey, all conference middle linebacker, buddy. Don't forget that. I get one Michelob Golden Pounder in me, and I start reliving the glory days.
Oh boy.
Uh, um, where the hell was I going with this? Oh, he was in a very vulnerable position, so it doesn't surprise me that a guy the size of Leonard Fournette laid a block like that. But I'd be beating my chest too if I was Leonard Fournette. I don't blame the guy, but this is why I love that players are on social media because we get stuff like that. It makes it so much more fun.
I think it's hilarious, but I don't know what the general accepted rules are for that kind of block, and if it does make you a coward, as Parsons put delicately in different terms. So I don't know if that makes you a coward or punk or anything, but Parsons think he seems to think so. So we will. Well, I don't know if they were going to meet in the playoff. They were going to meet in the playoff or had a chance to meet in the playoffs, but I don't know now with the Cowboys and their injuries if that's going to happen. But and then one more thing, just to recap some of the key injuries from the week. Chris Godwin went down with a hamstring injury. He's week to week. Dak Prescott, again, his thumb, 4 to 8 weeks. Derek Barnett, Eagles, defensive lineman, tore his ACL. That's unfortunate. Elijah Mitchell in the game against the Bears hurt his MCL. He's out 8 to 12 weeks. He was going to be the starting running back. Jamal Adams tore his quad. That sounds really painful. So he is going to be out for a significant amount of time. We haven't gotten a timetable on that. Keenan Allen, week to week with a hamstring. Kyle Fuller, former Bear, now a Baltimore Raven, tore his ACL. Mac Jones picked up a back injury, but apparently he's fine. So all systems go for Pittsburgh, but we'll keep our eyes on that one if it lingers. T. Higgins got a concussion, so I'm assuming week to week. And then TJ Watt tore a portion of his pec, but not as bad as people feared. So instead of being a season ending injury, it's now looking about a 6 week injury. So that's actually really good news because it could have been a lot worse there. Bears and the Packers had a couple injuries for some, we'll say, players that were in contention for starting / on the starting role, but no like Aaron Rodgers or, Preston Smith or Rashawn Gary or anything like that
No, it
as
just
far as the
sucks. We
injury front.
finally get some depth at linebacker, and then we get two linebackers hurt. Oh well.
Yeah, such the way of football. Corrections also from last week. Derek Carr, we talked about a breakout season for him. I couldn't remember when. 2016, 28 touchdowns, 6 picks, 3,900 yards passing. Pretty good year for him. And then in our previews, we forgot to mention the DeAndre Hopkins suspension for the Cardinals that we've touched on this episode and how much that would affect them. So Cardinals are going to be in for a rough start to the season, I think. And then talked about deep threats for Denver, but we forgot to mention Cortland Sutton, who I think is also a very capable deep threat for them. So just wanted to give him a shout out because he's also very, very good. All right. You're going to like this one for the get the man a mouth guard. It's your boy Brett Favre, and it's something we haven't touched on yet in our series of recordings, but something that we probably should have touched on by now because it's only getting, every time I check this news story, it gets worse. So basically, a former politician of the Mississippi state government was charged with fraud or something along those lines. And it turns out they were taking welfare money from the Mississippi state government allotted for welfare purposes and repurposing it for other reasons. And somehow Brett Favre was either receiving payments or whatnot, but he allegedly gave them all back. But then today, Tuesday, it came out that they were trying to use some of this welfare money to build a new volleyball stadium at the University of Southern Mississippi, which is where Favre went to college and where his daughter currently goes to college when she's on the volleyball team there. So the text that came out today that date August 3rd, 2017, Favre asks, if you were to pay me, is there any way the media can find out where it came from and how much? And the response from the official was no, we never have had that information publicized. I understand you're being uneasy about that, though. Let's see what happens on Monday with the conversation. Maybe we'll click with them, hopefully. Favre replies, okay, thanks. The next day, wow, just got off the phone with Phil Bryant. He's on board with us. We will get this done. Favre says, awesome. I needed to hear that for sure. I'm not sure if they're aware of how data works and the internet and things like that, but there is absolutely, if I text David Lighting, hey, I love you and I think you're the coolest person in the world, I kind of have to know in the back of my head that that could get out one day. Or if someone really tried really hard enough, they could take a screenshot of that and put it somewhere. So I'm not. This whole thing is fraught with controversy, and like I said, we should have probably touched on this a couple weeks ago, but we just had more pressing things to talk about. But now it's getting to the point where we probably should address that. So Favre, you're going to need a mouth guard for the rest of the week because the shitstorm that you've had a couple shitstorms in your life, some of them very warranted. It's about to get turned up to a political level now, and now the political activists on Twitter are going to be right down your throat.
It's not gonna be anyone's down his throat. It just sucks, man. uh, there's really no way to defend it. I mean, not that I would want to, but it just sucks as a as a Packers fan. Who we went through this whole we hate Favre, get him out of here. He's a Viking now, blah blah blah, to then welcoming him back home, putting him in the Ring of Honor. He was at a game last year.
Love that night.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that was that night. But they had like the 96 Super Bowl team reunion last year he was at. It was like, man, this guy just continues to dig himself a hole deeper and deeper off the field. Um, just not cool.
No, and especially when it's like, you know, a bit of tax dodging. It's like I don't condone it, but you can kind of like, okay, like you tried to be a schemester, it failed, go to prison, whatever. But like to defraud the welfare fund of a state that already has many sorts of issues is not a great look.
Hey,
So
maybe him and
tough.
Elio can become good friends.
IndyCar reference. Elio, four-time Indy 500 champion, was once charged with tax fraud, but was acquitted. But we still make
It,
H&R Block jokes at his expense.
so the last thing I'll say on this is Favre is absolutely in the wrong if he took welfare funds and indeed did pay for a volleyball facility. But okay, also, how in the world did Mississippi end up giving him the money? That's the other question I have. Like, there are a lot of things in play here. A lot of things that don't look so great.
A lot of uncovering needed to be done, but that's what lawyers are for, and we just get to kind of get those bits of information and then get to share them with everybody on the podcast.
Yeah.
It's the such is the way of the world. That was it. Week 1 in the books. Bears, Packers, Sunday night. Score prediction. I'm saying Packers 28, Bears 12.
A lot of field goals, hey.
Yep.
Packers 27, Bears 17.
So we'll keep our eyes on that. Lions have the Commanders this week, and Vikings play in Philadelphia on Monday night. 2 Monday night games this week. Don't necessarily know if I like that, but whatever. I guess more footballs can never a bad thing. So we'll have some fun with that. But we'll be having some fun Sunday night watching the game and probably chirping each other. So everybody, thanks for listening. Appreciate you guys.
Check out the socials to figure out what the lighting hickey Packer Bears bet will be to
Yes,
be
and our
determined.
predictions for the full week at Mouthguard Pod. But thank you so much. Hope you guys have a good weekend.